The Twi'leks, graceful and resilient, were a humanoid species hailing from the sun-scorched twilight-shadowed world of Ryloth. Known for their striking appearance, they were often the subject of fascination and exploitation in equal measure across the galaxy. Their vibrant skin tones, which ranged from rich cerulean to fiery crimson and muted pastels, mirrored the harsh and beautiful landscapes of their homeworld. However, it was their leku, sinuous, prehensile tentacles draping from the crowns of their heads, that truly set them apart. These braintails, as they were called, were far more than ornamental. They were intricate extensions of their nervous system, capable of both cognitive processing and a form of silent, nuanced communication. To some, they were tailheads, a slur muttered by the ignorant or cruel, yet beneath their allure and mystique lay a people of profound adaptability and quiet strength, navigating a galaxy that too often sought to bind them, even as their leku whispered secrets of freedom.
You are listening to the Star Lores Podcast. I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Are you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerve herder?
But I was going into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters.
Biology.
According to Asha, the mother machine, an artificial construct left by the Rakata, the Twi'leks were born not of natural evolution, but as a synthetic life form of her design. Created under the orders of the Rakata, these experiments were meant to unlock the secrets behind the Rakata's diminishing connection to the Force. If Asha's claims are to be believed, this origin would place the genesis of the Twi'lek species around 25,200 BBY, a time when the Rakatan Infinite Empire sought to bend creation itself to their will. Yet Asha's account raises a paradox. The mother machine's children were said to have been crafted on Belsavis after the fall of the Infinite Empire, an event that would seemingly contradict the existence of the advanced Twi'lek civilization on Ryloth thousands of years earlier. Historical records indicate that as early as 36453 BBY, a vibrant society of Twi'lek mystics had already taken root on their homeworld. These mystics, steeped in the study of the Force, were among those chosen by the ancient Tho-Yor starships to embark on a journey to Tython, the cradle of the Jedi Order. This temporal contradiction had long puzzled historians and mystics alike. Were the Twi'leks of Ryloth a naturally occurring species whose history predates even the mother machine's experiments, or were they one of Asha's early creations scattered across the galaxy by forces beyond her control? Regardless of their true origins, the Twi'leks people emerged as a testament of resilience, thriving across millennia to become one of the galaxy's most enduring and influential species. The Twi'leks are a sentient species of mostly hairless, near-human, and mammalian in nature. They were marked by their lithe frames and their graceful sweep of their leku, shaped by the arid and unforgiving environment of their homeworld Ryloth. Ryloth was a world of scarcity, its harsh landscapes yielding little in the way of sustenance. To survive, the Twi'leks evolved as omnivores, consuming whatever their environment could offer. Their biology bore the signature of this evolutionary battle: multiple stomachs, an unusual adaptation that allowed them to digest a vast array of foods, from the tough meats of local fauna to the sparse vegetation and cultivated molds that clung to the planet's rocky surface. On Ryloth, they survived on a diet shaped by necessity and resourcefulness, cultivating molds, fungi, and the meat of the Rykrit, a hardy herd beast. Yet beyond their home, they became symbols of exotic allure. Twi'lek females, celebrated or cursed for their beauty, often found themselves ensnared by the darker machinations of the galaxy's denizens, sold into slavery or forced into servitude as dancers, their grace and elegance commodified. When venturing beyond Ryloth, Twi'leks rarely refused a meal, a habit born not only of politeness but of cultural instinct. Yet, in the bounty of the wider galaxy, this tendency sometimes led to excess, with Twi'lek starfarers occasionally succumbing to obesity. In Twi'lek society, however, corpulence was not seen as a flaw but rather as a symbol of prosperity and status, a visual declaration of having escaped the deprivations of their homeworld. Among the obese, even their ear flaps would swell, storing reserves of fat like silent trophies of abundance. Whispers in the halls of the New Republic once hinted at a potential link between the Twi'leks and the mysterious Yavetha, though such theories remained unproven. Still, the Twi'leks themselves paid little heed to such conjectures, focused instead on their enduring struggle to balance survival with freedom, in a galaxy often eager to exploit their beauty. In every Leku's twitch and every calculated step, they carried the story of a species that had thrived against all odds. The Twi'leks were defined by their striking appearance, most notably their vivid spectrum of skin colors and the iconic brain tails that they called Leku. The Leku, those elegant, prehensile appendages draped from the heads of all Twi'leks and Togruta, were far more than mere adornments. Known by many names across the galaxy, from the Twi'leks' own terms Chun and Chien, to the more crude brain tails or head tails used by outsiders, these unique tentacles were as integral to their identity as they were to their biology. In fact, their very name, Twi'lek, was thought to originate from the phrase twin Leku in Semi-Basic, a nod to the defining feature that set them apart. Interestingly, newborn Twi'leks were born without Leku, a reminder that even the most iconic aspects of their physiology were the product of growth, development, and adaptation. As the Leku grew, they became not just symbols of maturity, but vital tools in navigating both the physical and cultural landscapes of their species. Emerging gracefully from the back of the skull, the Leku housed portions of the Twi'lek's brain, serving as conduits for thought, emotion, and communication. In the fluid, intricate language of the Twi'lek, words were interwoven with subtle Leku movements, creating a symphony of meaning that could elude even the sharpest eavesdropper. Beyond their cultural importance, the Leku also stored fat, a vital adaptation for survival on the resource-scarce world of Ryloth. Their culture was deeply tied to their unique physiology. While their vocal structures allowed them to master an array of alien tongues, for those adept in its use, the Leku could carry entire conversations in the midst of enemies, unseen and unheard. They also served as an erogenous zone, adding to their sensitivity, physiological, and cultural importance. Yet these sensitive appendages were also a vulnerability. A forceful grab could incapacitate a Twi'lek with searing pain, a fact that made them both a point of pride and potential liability. Despite their fragility, many Twi'leks adorned their Leku with elaborate tattoos or glittering paints, turning them into living canvases that reflected their individuality and status. For some, however, these adornments took darker forms. Desvin Torthal, for example, had his Leku altered with Sith alchemy, transforming them into deadly weapons armed with venomous stingers. The Leku's role extended beyond communication and aesthetics. They could be artfully draped around the shoulders or neck, mirroring the creative ways humans styled their hair. Even physiological changes, such as manifest in their brain tails, overindulgence in alcohol, for instance, could turn them a curious greenish hue. Despite their importance, the Leku were not invulnerable. Rihanna Saren, a Twi'lek operative, famously lost her right leg in battle, yet survived without lasting brain damage, adapting with a prosthetic. For the Twi'leks, the Leku were more than just extensions of their bodies. They were living symbols of their heritage, their pride, and their adaptability in a galaxy that so often sought to diminish them. Even in casual conversation, they paid homage to their unique biology, referring to Chun and Chin with familiarity and reverence that spoke volumes about their cultural significance.
Subspecies. The Twi'lek species were a living canvas, their evolutionary journey etched into their skin in a kaleidoscope of vivid hues and patterns. Over millennia, their pigmentation adapted and mutated, giving rise to a dazzling array of subraces and phenotypes, each sharing the same physiology, yet distinguished by their unique coloration. From the soft glow of pale lavender to the deep, smoldering crimson of rare lethans, the Twi'leks' skin told a story of diversity and survival. They also came black, white, tans, yellows, greens, pinks, and oranges, with eye colors ranging from blue and green to orange and yellow. Among the most common were the Rutian Twi'leks, their blue skin evoking the oceans their arid homeworld lacked. Shades ranged from aquamarine to deep sapphire, with some even veering into teal and turquoise, making them strikingly beautiful and widely recognized across the galaxy. Notable Rutians, like Jedi Master Aayla Secura, the roguish mission Vow of Terrace, and the Senator Orn Free Ta, stood as examples of this coloration. In stark contrast to the Rutians were the Lethans, a genetic anomaly and the rarest of all Twi'lek subraces. With red-tinted skin that seemed to burn with an inner fire, Lethans were said to appear only once in a million births, a rarity so profound it bordered on legend. Despite their supposed scarcity, whispers of Lethans echoed across the stars, from the deadly precision of Sith warriors like Darth Talon and Darth Atroxa, to the noble discipline of Lethan Jedi such as Bink Utrilla and Yadira Ban. Even among the elite, Lethan stood as a symbol of rarity, with many, like the consorts of Orn Free Ta, sought after for their singular beauty. Yet pigmentation among Twi'leks was not limited to solid tones. Their skin could bear intricate patterns, such as stripes, mottling, or subtle gradient shifts. Some carried rare combinations: blue skin with pink lips, orange adorned with crimson sparkles, or red with pale pink palms. These variations were more than mere aesthetics. They were a tapestry of genetic storytelling, each hue and pattern shaped by chance, mutation, and the ever-adapting nature of Twi'lek physiology. Language.
Di hotonga kun honkabi, ona kun bez ching palamule, tonking ba nunotek, togning chatukune mulerabes.
The Twi'leks' primary language, known as Twi'leki, or Rylothian, or simply Ryl, was as intricate as the species themselves. Built on a foundation of subtle body language and enunciable words, Twi'leki was a challenge for outsiders to grasp fully, lacking the head-tails that moved and twitched alongside the vocal effects, from which the language expressed meaning. While its spoken form was as widespread as Galactic Basic, it was the unspoken Leku language that set the Twi'leks apart. Exclusively their own, this silent mode of communication relied entirely on the nuanced gestures of their Leku, making it impenetrable to most other species. Twi'leki speakers of Galactic Basic often carried with them an unmistakable accent, marked by a distinctive treatment of vowels and the omission of certain consonants, such as dropping the S at the end of words. This linguistic quirk gave their speech a unique cadence, betraying their Rylothian roots, even in the most cosmopolitan of settings. Fluency in both Ryl and Leku was almost universal among Twi'leks, with many also mastering Galactic Basic and, not uncommonly, Huttese. This trilingual proficiency, combined with their natural adaptability, made them adept communicators in the diverse environments of the galaxy. However, Leku, used for the silent private exchanges, was uniquely Twi'lek form of expression and ideal for covert conversations in crowded or dangerous settings. Even among non-Twi'leks, mastery of Leku was a rare feat, with Jedi Master Kit Fisto standing out as one of the few outsiders to fully comprehend this silent art. In addition to this practical uses, Twi'leki held historical significance. During the Jedi Civil War, an older form of the language, simply called Twi'lek, served as the dominant interstellar commerce language outside the Republic. Its reach rivaled that of Galactic Basic, a hallmark of the Twi'leks' influence in galactic trade and diplomacy. Though their language evolved over millennia, the Twi'leks' mastery of communication, whether through spoken words or graceful Leku gestures, or their unmistakable accents, remained a cornerstone of their identity.
Names. Twi'lek names were more than mere identifiers. They were a tapestry of unity and heritage, interwoven with the culture's emphasis on collective identity. Unlike many other species, Twi'leks did not distinguish between personal and clan names. Instead, their names were a fusion of both, crafted with care to reflect their place within their clan. This often involved deliberate alterations to the structure or letters of the name, subtly shifting its meaning to signify harmony between the individual and their lineage. This intricate naming tradition also served as a marker of status or disgrace. For those who were exiled as criminals, the punishment extended to their very name. It would be split apart, severing the symbolic bond between personal identity and clan, an act of dishonor that branded the individual as an outcast in the eyes of their people. Interestingly, Twi'lek naming conventions didn't stop at their own culture. They adapted foreign names with the same meticulous creativity, molding them into forms that aligned with their linguistic traditions. For instance, Wedge Antilles, the rebel pilot renowned for his skill and valor, was referred to by Twi'leks as Wedgantilles, a name that transformed into the poetic title Slayer of Stars. Yet, if pronounced in its unaltered galactic basic form, the same name carried a far less flattering meaning, roughly translating to one so vile he could make a rancor vomit. A classic example of a true Twi'lek name was Nawar Ivan. When interacting with those outside their culture, the name was split into its component, becoming Nawara Ven. In this case, the clan name was Ven, while the placement of the final A in Nawara was shifted to give the full name a nuanced and deliberate meaning. However, by the twilight years of the Galactic Republic, this ancient practice began to wane. Prominent Twi'lek leaders like Ro Fen and Paul Sakura favored using simplified versions of their names, even during private conversations on Ryloth. Whether this was a sign of cultural evolution or a concession to Galactic Basic's dominance, the shift marked a subtle erosion of a tradition deeply rooted in Twi'lek identity. Society and culture.
Twi'lek women, known across the galaxy for their natural grace and exotic allure, were often tragically reduced to commodities by unscrupulous traders and slavers. Their elegance made them coveted as dancers and status symbols, particularly among the decadent circles of the Hutt cartel, where their presence was flaunted as a sign of wealth and power. This grim reality was a reflection of Ryloth's own economy, where slavery served as the planet's lifeblood, a cruel practice tolerated by the Galactic Republic, which turned a blind eye to the suffering of the Twi'leks in favor of political convenience. The Twi'lek people, shaped by generations of adversity, adopted a philosophy of survival over resistance, summarized in the proverb, quote, "ride the storm rather than defeat it." This pragmatic approach permeated their politics and society. During the Clone Wars, Twi'lek politicians outwardly supported the Galactic Republic while others secretly kept channels open with the Separatists, hedging their bets in a galaxy rife with uncertainty. Their faith centered around a singular female deity. Yet the Twi'leks were not defined solely by their struggles. Beneath the stereotypes of merchants and outlaws lay a proud warrior tradition, honed over centuries. Twi'lek warriors left their mark on history, from a Mandalorian Twi'lek who fought valiantly at the Battle of Vanquo during the Mandalorian Wars, to the innovative minds that created the Char-Daki, or Death Seed starfighter. These formidable hybrid craft combine the lethal agility of a TIE fighter cockpit with the versatile S-foils of the X-Wing and B-Wing's rotation system, making them testament to Twi'lek's ingenuity and martial prowess. Their fighting spirit endured into the Galactic Civil War, when Twi'lek warriors joined forces with legendary figures like Wedge Antilles during the Bacta War to combat the tyranny of Hussein Assad. Whether as warriors, innovators, or survivors, the Twi'leks proved time and again that their resilience and resourcefulness were as much a part of their identity as the leku that adorned their heads. Twi'lek society was as harsh as the landscape of Ryloth itself, its traditions shaped by a blend of pragmatism and ruthless efficiency. Divided into clans, each of which governed its own city, the Twi'lek organized their lives around a system of power that was both cyclical and unforgiving. At the apex of the structure stood the head clan, a council of 5 who wielded absolute authority over all matters of governance. But leadership among the Twi'leks came with an inevitable grim price. The head clan, served until death, claimed one of its members. When that moment arrived, the remaining 4 were stripped of their titles and cast out into the scorching, merciless expanse of Ryloth's day side. This ritual of exile was not merely symbolic. It was a death sentence, an uncompromising purge designed to make way for the next generation of rulers. Leadership was not a legacy to be clung to, but a burden passed on through the unforgiving cycles of time and survival. Should the rightful heirs to power be deemed unprepared, the Twi'leks turned to a stopgap measure. A cadre of regents appointed to hold the reins of leadership until the successors were ready to claim their inherited positions. This interim rule ensured stability, but it was temporary by design, a mere placeholder for the inexorable rise of the new blood. This system of governance and its brutality mirrored the Twi'lek philosophy of survival above all else. To live on Ryloth was to endure its extremes, and Twi'lek society embraced this harsh reality, ensuring that power, like life itself, was never stagnant, always shifting, and forever shaped by the inevitable march of the time and death.
Homeworld. Ryloth, also known as simply Twi'lek or Twi'lek Prime, was a world of extremes and contrasts, a harsh, rocky homeworld to the Twi'leks located at the far reaches of the Outer Rim. Positioned on the Corellian Run, it stood at one end of the Deathwind Corridor, a place where the forces of nature were as unpredictable as the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. One side of the planet was eternally bathed in the searing heat of its sun, while the other remained in perpetual darkness, a phenomenon known as tidal locking. The sun-scorched day side was called the Brightlands, while the frozen, shadowed night side was known as the Nightlands. The second planet in the Ryloth system, Ryloth boasted a thin but breathable atmosphere. It was orbited by 5 moons, whose subtle gravitational pull affected the planet's liquid core and underground springs. Despite the moon's influence, Ryloth had little surface water, save for occasional patches of water ice hidden in the shadows of the Nightlands. A place of extremes, Ryloth was a world of dry deserts, jagged mountain ranges veiled in mist and shadowed valleys. The planet's harshness was broken only by small temperate bands where life could endure, and the Twi'leks had made their home. Atmospheric conditions on Ryloth were equally fierce, with high winds reaching speeds of up to 500 kilometers per hour, scouring the surface and shaping the landscape. Heat storms would suddenly erupt, blasting the planet with temperatures that could reach up to 300 degrees Celsius. These storms could even penetrate deep into the planet, scalding caves miles below the surface, while making them temporarily uninhabitable before eventually fading on the night side. Amidst this chaos lay a narrow band along the Terminator, where the extremes of day and night met in a twilight zone. It was here that the Twi'leks found refuge, building underground cities shielded by thick blast doors and portcullises, protecting themselves from the terrifying creatures that roamed the bright lands, particularly the deadly Twi'leks. Among Ryloth's many natural wonders were the floating rock gardens, a breathtaking spectacle known across the outer rim. Strong winds swept through the tunnels of the gardens, causing rocks to float weightlessly through the air. Over time, these floating stones became the site of rare and precious gems. The visitors were invited to rearrange the stones at their leisure, encouraged to find meaning in their natural formations. Kala'un, a permanent city nestled within the Lonely Five mountain range, boasted one of Ryloth's largest underground spaceports, a testament to the planet's ingenuity in carving life out of its unforgiving environment. To those who had journeyed to Ryloth, it was said to share certain similarity with Tatooine. Both planets were arid, harsh, and isolated, but Ryloth's brutal winds and oppressive heat storms set it apart with a sense of desolation that was uniquely its own. The fauna of Ryloth was as deadly as its environment, a collection of predators honed to survive its extreme conditions. The Twi'lek, with its hard-shelled insectoid body, sharp limbs, and powerful tentacles, was the most feared of the planet's native creatures, able to endure the searing heat of the bright lands. The Twi'leks was a relentless hunter. Beneath the surface, in the dark caverns of the Nightland, the Doashim, red-eyed, horned, and fanged, prowled the underground in search of prey, resembling demonic figures from the myths of other species. The Doashim struck terror into the hearts of any who dared venture into their domain. The Gutkur, fast and vicious, with spines protruding from the carapaces, were another predator that the Twi'leks feared deeply. Yet, not all creatures on Ryloth were bent on destruction. The Rykrit, a short-furred quadruped, was a rare example of a non-aggressive species. These herd animals were prized by the Twi'leks, who raised them for their hides and meat, the latter often used to prepare the planet's infamous Rykrit stew. In a world defined by danger, the Rykrit stood as a symbol of the perseverance and survival that defined Ryloth itself. The planet's greatest treasure, its lifeblood and the cornerstone of its early trade, was the mineral known as Ryll, a potent hallucinogenic spice discovered in 4800 BBY. Unlike typical ores, Ryll did not appear in veins, but in rare glowing blooms that formed deep within the planet's rocks. Miners tunneled beneath these blooms, drilling upward to extract the precious substance. Originally, Ryll was harvested for medicinal use, a potent cure for various ailments, but its addictive properties and powerful hallucinogenic effects soon turned into a recreational drug of choice for scoundrels, nobles, and the galaxy's most decadent figures. The true danger of Ryll lay in its addictive grip. As its black market flourished, so too did its more dangerous cousin, Glitterryll, a synthetic blend of Ryll and glitter stim. The concoction numbed the memory and dulled the mind, making it even more irresistible to those seeking to escape reality's harsh truths. Though banned on most Republic worlds, the demand for Ryll and Glitterryll surged, feeding an ever-expanding underground network of smugglers and crime lords. What began as a legitimate business soon spiraled into a lawless war between rival syndicates, all vying for control of the lucrative spice trade. In 4800 BY, the Neomoidians briefly seized the exclusive rights to Ryll distribution, thinking it would put an end to the illicit operations. But their greed and careless handling of the spice only made matters worse. the irresponsible flooding of the market eventually ignited the infamous Gank massacres, a bloody event that only served to fuel the already volatile situation. By the time of the Jedi Civil War, the once legitimate Rill mining operations had been swallowed up by the criminal underworld, leaving behind only smugglers and chaos in their wake. The spice that once held promise now held nothing but destruction. History.
Around 10,000 BBY, the Twi'lek homeworld of Ryloth was discovered by the Galactic Republic, in a time when the Twi'lek people were still in a primitive state. Despite their lack of advanced technology, they had lived for centuries in relative harmony. Soon after their discovery, the Twi'leks aligned themselves with the Republic, eager to benefit from the vast opportunities the galaxy offered. Ryloth's riches, particularly its abundant Rill spice, became the galaxy's next great treasure. As the clans saw the potential for wealth, they ramped up production, sending shipments of the prized spice off-world. But their lack of experience in galactic commerce quickly became evident. Before long, the Hutts seized control of Ryloth's spice mines and enslaved the Twi'lek people. Their once proud clans were reduced to laboring in their own mines, exploited for the profit of the Hutts, or sold to the open market. The very planet that had once been a cradle of thriving civilization became a symbol of subjugation. Over generations of enslavement, the Twi'lek people found themselves scattered across the galaxy. More numerous in the depths of foreign markets than on their own homeworld, many lost all connections to Ryloth, their culture, and their ancestral lands. By 3643 BBY, the clans managed to reclaim their home from the Hutts. By the planet's real mines still made it a tempting target for pirates and mercenaries. To maintain their wealth, most of their clan leaders began selling their own people into slavery, most tragically their women, whose beauty became a commodity. The Republic, indifferent or perhaps complicit, turned a blind eye to the flourishing slave trade, as Ryloth's real wealth fueled the black market economy. The Twi'lek people became ubiquitous throughout the galaxy. Business people, servants, mercenaries, and slaves. Their strikingly humanoid appearance, with their characteristic leku and graceful demeanor, made them both exotic and familiar to many, leaving them less vulnerable to the rampant anti-alien prejudice that other species faced during the Imperial era. Throughout the galaxy, Twi'lek dancing girls and consorts became prized possessions, a symbol of status among the elite. Their presence was felt in every corner of the galaxy, from the slums of Coruscant to the courtrooms of wealthy senators. But while they were exploited as tools of wealth and pleasure, the Twi'leks also became entwined in the galaxy's darker intrigues. Graxel Kelvian, the ruthless Ank's crime lord, built a vast slave trading network based on Ryloth, reaching even into the heart of the galaxy. It was a grim business, one in which the Twi'lek people became both victims and players. Ryloth's history was forever stained by its trade, even as its culture and people continued to evolve. Jedi, such as Aayla Secura, were taken from their homes, only to become heroes of the Republic in their darkest hours. Twi'lek rebels rose against the Empire, battling the forces that had long oppressed them, though their homeworld was often under the boot of Imperial forces. Senator Ornfree Ta, a figurehead of Ryloth's political influence, worked tirelessly to maintain their status within the Republic, but behind the scenes, the planet's fate remained entwined with the dirty dealings of criminals, warlords, and slavers. In the years that followed, the galaxy's perception of the Twi'leks would continue to shift, with the struggles for freedom and identity often simmering beneath the surface. Freedom fighters fought through the Clone Wars, and even after the fall of the Empire and the rise of the New Republic, Ryloth's scars were deep, and its people were far from free. The struggle for their place in the galaxy would continue, one marked by both servitude and the enduring spirit of resistance.
Please stay tuned for this public service announcement.
The Emperor requests your aid in a matter of utmost importance. Rebel activity threatens the security of the Empire. If you or someone you are familiar with encounter any suspected rebel activity, you are to report it to the nearest Imperial outpost.
Welcome aboard the Millennial Falcon. This is Christian.
And this is Jordan.
We're currently on the beautiful and harsh planet of Ryloth. Really,
No, beautiful isn't exactly how I describe it. Terrifying.
I'm trying to be polite.
Deadly.
Cold and hot.
Yeah. Too hot or too
Unforgiving,
cold.
Yeah. But before we delve into our topic of speciality today, Twi'leks, let's get some housekeeping out of the way.
Yeah, for sure. So we, first of all, just want to thank all of our supporting listeners. You guys help keep this bucket of bolts flying in the air and on the hyperspace lanes, so we can bring you the best Star Wars content on the HoloNet.
And the hottest spice in the galaxy.
Absolutely. Get some glitter stem right in your directly in your veins, baby.
Right through your ear holes.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you to all our supporting listeners, all our Patreon members. For $3 a month, you can become a Patreon member, and you get access to all the bonus episodes. For $5 a month, you can join our Jedi Knight tier, and not only do you get all the bonus episodes, but you also get ad-free listening, which is nice because who likes ads? They're just so annoying. So wouldn't you just rather hop on Patreon and pay that $5 USD a month, which is basically a coffee with inflation now? So come on. Get to it, guys. And if you wanted to do single episode buys as well, I know some people don't want to do the recurring payments, but if you did want to do a single episode buy, we do offer bonus episodes for $3 per episode. That's on Patreon as well. And single donations can also go to PayPal, starlordspodcast@gmail.com, if you wanted to support the show via PayPal. We also sell merch on Redbubble, so check out some of our designs there. You can get a mug, a shirt, a print, whatever you like. Also, guys, help us share the show. Rate and review the show on iTunes or Spotify. And also share the show with friends or family or groups who you think might like it. We love it when you do that. Don't forget to rate and review. Don't forget to rate and review. And let me repeat, don't forget to rate and review. Follow us on social media. We are on Discord, Instagram, x.com, Facebook. You can follow our social links. All are in the description. Also, if you just search Star Wars Podcast on any of those platforms, you should be able to find us. But if you can't...
we'll find you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Also, for any other comments or business inquiries, you can find us at the starlordspodcast@gmail.com. That's where you can email us. And guys, also email or direct message on social media your Star Wars collections, your fan fiction, your in-universe ads, and any corrections or comments that you might have on any of the episodes. And specifically for this episode, we want to thank our resident Star Wars Don Draper, TJ, for providing us with today's public service announcement. Thank you very much. It's very good for all of us to stay aware and informed about any dissident activity that might be going on, and to make sure that you report it. Am I right? Especially those Twi'leks. I feel like they're very rebellious and vagrant-like. Anyways, speaking of Twi'leks.
All right, let's get into it. Let's get this out of the way first and foremost. Twi'lek or Twi'lek?
A long-held debate. We might have to go to some audio clips.
Yeah.
Does anyone actually say the word in the movies?
I don't believe so. Oh, they have.
They must in the Clone Wars.
I was going to say in the Clone Wars, yes. But I guess that would be unless it's in some kind of audio book from like a book written in the 2000 or 90s. I was going to say the name Twi'lek itself was first coined in 1987 through West End Games through an RPG source book. So
Okay.
it first came out in print. So like,
Oh, well, they were. When did the Twi'lek first appear in Return of the Jedi?
Yeah.
Oh.
but there wouldn't be reference as species until that source book came out in 87.
Okay.
So yeah. I mean, if you look at the origin of the name Twin-leku,
Oh yeah, I think that's like a
Twi'lek.
even if that was like a like a retrospective explanation.
Yeah.
It
makes
works.
sense,
Yeah, it
Twi'lek.
works. Totally works. Yeah.
All right. I might fluctuate between the two. Depends how I'm feeling at any given
Well,
time.
on that note, all you listeners out there, make sure to email us. With
Tell us
your-
what the
your
appropriate pronunciation.
What you think? I think it's Twi'lek. To me, it's always been Twi'lek, but Christian likes to say Twi'lek. So settle it for us. Have a vote. Have a duel to the death.
Yes. First, yes, we had our first point. Second point, there's a little bit of inconsistency in Ryloth, the planet, how it's portrayed and described. First point being tidal lock, meaning a planet doesn't go through day-night cycles because one side is perpetually facing the star and the other one is facing away. That is very evidently contravened in the Clone Wars TV series where they have day-night cycles.
Like on Ryloth.
Yeah.
Okay.
During the Ryloth campaign. And then again, it's always the debate that we come back to is the canonicity of Clone Wars. And
That's just Filoni's finagling.
yeah. And now it is canon because I guess now they've declared that Clone Wars is preeminent over previous lore. But yeah. So Ryloth suffers a lot from existing in both universes, the Disney Wars and in the Legends Wars, because it is featured quite heavily, especially lately in television series specifically. I believe it's featured heavily in Rebels. It's heavily featured in the Clone Wars. Yeah. There's some cool stories that I would like to adopt into the Legends universe. I reserve the explicit right to do so. A lot around the Siege of Ryloth arc, which is actually a really good arc in the Clone Wars series. It really features like the civilian cost of war, which is kind of cool. And then they have like the Ryloth resistance fighters like Cham Syndulla, who I think were inspired very heavily by the French resistance during World War II, when France was being occupied by the Germans.
Yeah.
I guess Lucas was pretty insistent on giving Twi'leks a French accent. So, a little bit on the nose, but goes a little bit with that exotic allure. The French women are often portrayed in like media as like, like vixens and.
So I have a question
Yeah.
about a big character who I've never actually done. I haven't like been that into the Clone Wars, but like, what species is Ahsoka Tano? She
She's
looks
a Torgaruta.
She looks that. Why is that species like such a rip off of Twi'leks?
Well,
why not just use a Twi'lek?
So the Torgaruta actually first appear in episode 1. Shakti is the first Torgaruta we see. So it's not even like a Filoni invented species.
Oh yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
The interesting,
but why did George Lucas
rip himself off? Yeah, that
what he already had.
I don't know. I don't see Torgaruta as being so similar to.
Really?
Yeah. When they grow older, like Ahsoka, when you first see her, she's kind of younger. Her head tails aren't as defined as older Torgaruta. You'll see them kind of become more pronounced.
Are they even like related in any way?
No, not genetically. And that's the odd thing I was going to bring up between the two is that they both share these leku, these head tails, and they like the fact that they're both called the same thing. Like it's almost like saying an arm. Like I have an arm and a Wookiee has an arm.
Okay.
The Torgaruta have leku and the Twi'leks have leku, but there's no genetic overlap
the basic word
between them. Yeah.
Leku, yeah. Okay. Well.
Yeah. And now we all know the physiological name for the head tails.
Yeah. Any other species
with head tails?
Leku that
So
we
that's
need
a
to
weird
know
thing.
about?
So Kit Fisto species, the nautilins, have almost like dreadlocks. They have like a bunch of head tails,
Right, yeah.
but they're not described as a Leku.
Oh,
So,
no. Okay.
And oddly enough, he can understand when Twi'leks communicate using their Leku.
Oh.
So it's a confusing mess.
Yeah, there's some incongruity there.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Like, I mean, I don't know, man. We'll have to do an episode of Nautilins and see if they like. I wonder if it's a function of like if your brain goes into the Leku, if
Right.
that means like that's a defining feature of a Leku versus just a head tail of some kind.
Yeah. I was actually going to mention it is kind of cool, like how they sort of developed in the EU, how they developed the lore of just their physiology, like their central nervous system is partially in their Leku, and their like brain processing powers. But that's like kind of cool, I think, to like integrate that into. It's more than just something
Decorative.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the first Twi'leks we see on screen, probably, I don't remember seeing them in A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back. It's probably Bib Fortuna.
Yeah.
If I'm not
I think
mistaken.
that's, if I'm not mistaken either, but someone could correct us on
Yeah.
that.
And then you'll see them prominently in Jabba's palace too, as like dancing girls.
Yeah.
And that's often how you see, like, they're very sexualized as a on-screen appearance often every time you see them, which plays into kind of like, you know, the whole history of their exploitation and stuff, and kind of what I was saying before too with that, like, it's not, I don't know how common it is now, but there was a time like in Americana where like the French vixen was like an archetype, right? Like an exotic woman that was like, you know, a trophy or something to attain. And I think part of that is like transposed onto the Twi'leks, which is why they're often portrayed in those like, yeah.
And on that note, all you weirdos with your sexy Twilight posters, take those down.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Leku sexuals.
Yeah. Your Leku fetish.
Yeah.
Stop it. Okay, let's continue.
Yeah.
Twi'leks.
Well, I mean, on that topic too, it's kind of ironic. Well, I don't know if it's ironic, but like one of the suggestively dressed Jedi too is Aayla Secura, who's like often pointed out, also being a Twi'lek. So.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know if this is an inner. They often say that authors will inject their fetishes into their work, so I wonder if this is a subtle Lucas thing going on, something to do with head tails. But,
Could be.
yeah. There's also some debate about whether or not humans and Twi'leks are genetically compatible in terms of breeding. I believe it is explicitly stated that humans and Twi'leks are not compatible in a novel, Republic Commando. However, it's contradicted by the appearance of hybrid children in the Clone Wars television series.
Of course.
Yeah.
Filoni
Once again strikes. I believe it is a clone trooper deserter who interbreeds with a Twi'lek. And obviously this is speaking for Legends. I think it is pretty explicitly clear that in canon, there's some pretty prominent Twi'leks. Syndulla Captain, I forget her name. She's pretty prominent in Rebels. She ends up having a son with a Jedi as well. So, yeah. But again, that's like a Filoni-verse thing.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, whether or not you believe them to be compatible, I guess is.
I mean, I don't know. It seems to be a pretty new thing. Like a more recent thing.
Retcon.
Yeah. Which I don't like. I wish they would just stick to kind of what was established before. Yeah. I'm kind of wondering, like a human Twi'lek hybrid, is that kind of like a Liger, like it's a genetic dead end?
Well, so that's
it can't produce anymore.
Again,
I mean,
speaking from Legends, we don't know because we only see these children as children. Yeah, who knows if like as I grow older, if they themselves will, like you said, would be genetic dead ends or unable to produce offspring themselves, which is a differentiation between a separate species or not.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of examples of them in real life hybrids, like mules, for example, who, you know, are crossbreeds of different species, like you said, ligers and tigons and things that cannot produce more after themselves. So, yeah, I don't. The answer is I don't know.
Fair enough. I mean, I wouldn't expect you to.
I haven't studied Twi'lek breeding patterns quite deeply enough, but that's why we're here. We're here to find some samples. Beyond that, you know, like I said, Twi'leks are pretty prominent in the universe. You'll often see them in the backgrounds of scenes and things like that. So they're pretty easy to pick out, like in crowd shots and stuff. And again, they're one of those species that people recognize, right? Like
they're definitely the
Ewoks.
most recognizable of like the Star Wars species. I would say like them and Rhodians and Wookiees. You know, are
all
kinda,
top easily identifiable just on a glance.
Yeah. And huts and stuff like that too.
Yeah. There's a few, actually, now that you think about it. Which is good. That speaks to the creativity of the different species of
for sure.
of legends. Something that is not the same for Disney Wars.
And one thing I kind of always liked about Star Wars and their depiction of alien species is they're not just like basically humans. Like
the Star Trek
suffered a lot from, but other properties have suffered from that too. Where it's like this, like I know in Isaac Asimov's Foundations and stuff, it's sort of a lot of the species are they're like genetically modified, or they've been breeding apart from regular Earth humanity for like so many millennia that they're now like slightly different, right? So it's all just basically humans. Like there's that element in Warhammer 40k too, right? Where you have a lot of close human cousins.
They're called abhumans.
Abhumans. But there's the thing I do like about Star Wars is like the very distinctive features of like the alien races, and you can really pick them apart, and they look like they were actually like evolved on different planets, and they don't just look the same, you know?
I think Star Wars is a good, like a lot of that comes from obviously technological limitations, right? Like especially around Star Trek and everything. I feel like you have something like Star Trek where it's like pretty low on the scale of
especially the original
exactly.
They do get better like
over
later on, but
as it becomes easier to depict. And Star Wars for its time is like that, because then you have some also really cool. There was a show on Discovery Channel a long time ago. I forget what it was called now. I think like Alien Planet or something, where they were exploring different ways species could evolve. Specifically,
I think it's on Netflix as well.
It may be at this point, but that's when I first saw it. And it's like the intention is to find ways that things could evolve explicitly divergent from what things look like on Earth. Like on purpose, just get wild with it and crazy, because there shouldn't be an expectation that things evolving under different pressures, different environmental pressures should look like us, right? Now, that all being said, there is also a counter theory about convergent evolution and like how everything eventually becomes crabs in the end.
Okay.
Which is kind of like the meme of it, but essentially that certain traits just happen to be the best and most optimal way to do things. Which is why they become that way.
And sort of essentially every environment will pressure those traits.
Right, exactly.
Into existence.
Things like eyes and, limbs that have certain functionality.
I mean, I will say, like, the vast majority of species in Star Wars are like bipedal, human-like. Like, so they're not, obviously not that different, but at least, they do look distinct enough that you can tell them apart.
Sure, absolutely, and even things like traits like faces, right? Like what we describe as faces, also gives not just technological limitations of the time, but also when you're writing stories or depictions in cinema, like you can express emotion and character development, things like that through having things like faces, right? Whereas if you have an alien that is just too alien, it's kind of hard for humans to relate to it at all as the audience that's obviously watching or consuming the material. Some good examples that go like way out into the extreme is like War of the Worlds, for example, has like some really alien looking aliens.
Yeah, also, if anyone's watched like Arrival.
Yeah, that's the other group I was going to mention.
Yeah, it's like, very alien to
And even the way they process time is different, which is a cool, unique trait, right?
Oh, I love Arrival. It's like such a great film, but great short stories. It's called The Story of Your Life, which is the short story it's based off, but everyone should read that as well. So, but I'm
always a fan of good sci-fi.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
all right, I think that's about it. Guys, make sure to let us know if it's Twi'lek or Twi'lek. See you later.